Good morning, everybody. Today's proceedings are being live streamed, subject to a 10-minute delay. Those with electronic devices may use them to report what they are hearing in the hearing room, but only after 10 minutes have elapsed since the event that they're reporting. Devices may not be used for recording or photography. Ms. Garchester. I'm so sorry. May the witness be sworn, please.
Please and repeat after me. I do solemnly, sincerely and truly
I do solemnly, sincerely and truly
declare and affirm
that
the evidence I shall give
shall
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
nothing but the truth.
Thank you. Please go.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm not going to ask the witness her name. I'm just going to refer to you as Jessica.
Yes.
And Jessica, that's because you have been granted anonymity and that's your cipher. That's how you're known in this inquiry. And
Yes.
confirm that that's correct. You gave a witness statement to the inquiry dated the 27th of June of this year. Can we just have the first page on the screen, please? UCPI 037092. And Jessica, do you recognise that as your witness statement that you made to this inquiry?
Yes.
It consists of 98 pages and it's signed at the end by you. Do you confirm that its contents are true to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
That will stand as your written evidence to the inquiry. What I'm going to do today is ask you questions about some parts of it and go into perhaps a little bit more detail about certain areas, all right?
Okay.
Can we start with your background and your entry, as it were, into animal rights? You say in your witness statement that you became interested in animal rights in your early teens, is that right?
Yes. Yes.
So I think you were vegetarian from the age of 12?
Yes.
And you became a vegan aged 19?
Yes.
Did you have lots of pets when you were growing up?
Yes, I did. I had cats, budgie, dog. I got my first. We got our first dog when I was 11 or 12, and then after that I volunteered sort of an animal rescue, and then we got a lot more pets after that.
And was that as a result of your volunteering?
Yes. Yes.
So rescued animals?
Yes.
I think you say in your witness statement that aged 12 or 13 you started to go on national marches or events, animal rights related events with friends at the weekends, is that right?
Yes, it was like World Animal Day, and I think prior to that I'd been on hunt sab, so I think I was about 14, and it was people from the animal rescue that I went with, and so I went to a Boxing Day meet of a fox hunt, and then we went off and sabbed a beagle pack.
And I think that you just said, as you say in your statement, that came about through the people that you were working with at the animal sanctuary.
Yes, yeah, I was volunteering. I mean, I was still at school, but I volunteered sort of weekends and after school, and virtually any time that I could get down there, I would go. It was it was a few miles walk, but I used to go, and I spent as much time there as I could.
So did you used to walk those few miles to get there?
Yes.
And back again, presumably, at the end?
Yes, yeah.
So would you describe yourself by that age as fairly dedicated to animals?
Yes, very much.
And through that work, that volunteering work at the sanctuary, you came to be at this Boxing Day hunt saboteur event.
Yeah.
I just ask you briefly about that. What attracted you to go along to that in the first place?
I think I was very, obviously anyone that loves animals is anti-hunt, and there was lots of things around at the time, so there was like a specific like leaflet that the HSA had put out, and I was never a member of the HSA, but you'd see sort of like street stalls and that, and I just remember thinking hunting was just it's appalling and cruel, and I wanted to sort of voice my thoughts on it. So, and there was a group of people going, and I sort of like pushed my way into going with them.
So you pushed yourself forwards rather than being brought along?
Yes, I'm afraid so.
And I think you say in your witness statement that you were one of the youngest people there on that first occasion, is that right?
Yes.
You were aged 13 or 14, I think you say in your statement?
Yes.
And how much older, generally, was everybody else?
I mean, they all actually worked at this place, so I think the youngest one would probably have been about 19 or 20. So yeah, there was probably about like 5 or 6 other people there, but I would say the youngest was sort of 19, 20, and then everyone else was sort of considerably older than me.
And what was that experience like for you?
It was. It just made me so angry, because like when you sort of like sabbing a hair pack, because the hairs don't, they can't escape. Like they don't have, they live in kind of like sort of little furrows in the ground, so they can't escape. And being sort of in the field with the beagles, and at one point, as we were sort of walking towards the pack, I stepped over a hair as it was sort of frozen on the ground and just had to pretend that I hadn't seen it and just get the hounds away. So it was, I mean, I never enjoed sabbing, there's always that, I used to feel sick at times just thinking that something was going to get killed. It was also a little bit sort of frightening. I mean, it wasn't this particular time, but it's, I was just angry. It just made me angry at these people. All they wanted to do was just, rip some defenseless animal to bits. So yeah, I was angry and just thought, this is actually, it's something you can see. You have like, once once the animal gets away, it's sort of, that's, what you've done, you've saved that animal for that day. And it's one of the things, it's instant. So yeah, it made me feel it was a really worthwhile thing to do.
I think given your young age, it was suggested to you that you perhaps didn't come back for a while, is that right?
Yes, yeah, no one would take any responsibility for me, so I couldn't go out again.
Right,
Because,
sorry.
Well, yeah, I think I was sort of a little bit maybe leery, and so yeah, I wasn't. Yeah, they basically said like, you're not coming out with us again. So yeah, that was the end of my first lot of sabbing.
And just so that it's not misunderstood, when you use the word Larry, what do you mean?
Oh, quite a lot to say for myself, and not shy of saying it. Really a surprise, I don't think, to anyone here.
All right, we'll come back to your later experiences of hunt sabbing when you were a bit older. I think you returned to it aged about 17 or 18.
Yes.
Right, I'll come back to that. Just going back to your entry, as it were, into animal rights activism. In addition to hunt sabbing, I think you describe in your witness statement attending talks at the British Union Against Vivisection.
I think that
times.
was... Yeah, that was more, I think, like on the World Day and stuff. That was when those sort of things happened. I don't remember actually like going to anywhere. It was, if it was like a demo or something, quite often the people would speak.
Can I ask you some questions about your growing up, your upbringing, your growing up and your experiences up to and around that point in your life? You describe in your witness statement that you were adopted as a baby and that you suffered some bullying as a result. Can I ask you just to explain what it was like growing up in those circumstances, what it was like for Jessica?
Yeah, I mean, my parents always wanted it to be, that they wanted to tell me, so they always wanted me to know. So we think they told me as I was perhaps too young to understand, and At the time, the only thing that I sort of took away from what they told me is that, I had a different name as a baby, and not really sort of understanding. I remember asking my best friend, I said, what was your name when you were a baby? Because babies come with different names. And obviously thought I was mad, and went back and asked his mum, who then sort of said, it must be because I was adopted. And then, as kids do, every time we fell out after that, that was the thing that he used to sort of say to me. It would always be like name calling, and I think probably the thing that stuck with me was like, what's wrong with you? Even your own mother didn't want you. And yeah, so I think, I certainly carried that, and the shame of being adopted from that age, is what I didn't, I never told people about it, because it just made me deeply, deeply ashamed of it.
And you had a brother, is that right?
Yes, yeah.
And I think he was killed in tragic circumstances whilst riding his bike, wasn't he?
Yes, yeah. I was 11 and he was 15, and I think he'd gone out. It was, I don't know, some football match final day, and yeah, then he stopped and was talking to someone. So he was actually sort of on the curb, and a guy was been to the pub and just driving home and just went straight into the back of him. So yeah, he was killed.
So aged 11, you had to deal with quite a significant bereavement.
Yes, yeah, that it changed. I mean, obviously it changed everything for all of us. And yeah, I mean, my family was never the same. It destroyed our family. Yeah, I mean, I think everyone was trying to deal with it in their own kind of way, and my parents didn't really deal with it together. I think they sort of dealt with it in their own way, and I was sort of left kind of to deal with it myself. No fault of their own. I've never blamed them, but yeah, I was sort of I had to kind of find my own way through that.
And looking back now, if you were asked to reflect, how well do you think 11-year-old Jessica was able to find her own way through that?
I don't know. Up until kind of recent events, that I thought I kind of done okay. I thought, no one. I thought if nobody realised how I actually was, if I could pretend that everything was okay and still make jokes, and nobody really knew, then I kind of thought that I was doing all right. And so I think I thought I was doing okay.
And now, do you have a different reflection on it?
I think looking at some of the things that have been said, sort of, obviously this is jumping forwards a bit, but particularly by HN2, just how quite damaged I think I actually was, although no one wants to admit that, and I would never admit it at the time, but I think reading that, I think I wasn't in a good place. I tried to deal with it as well as I could, but I think I was, I say, vulnerable, but pretending really hard not to be. But I was also, and again, it's, kids can be horrible. I was then bullied because my brother had died. So it just, I guess what it taught me is, you don't share these things with people. You know, I don't up until, again, recently, I never spoke about being adopted. Wouldn't speak about my brother, because you don't give people the ammunition to use against you should you fall out. So, yeah, I think it obviously shaped who I am now because of what happened.
And so something you said in there, can I just explore, outwardly to other people, would teenage Jessica have appeared vulnerable, or would teenage Jessica have appeared outwardly somewhat more robust than that?
I think I thought I appeared quite okay, but I don't think I was fooling as many people as I thought I was. And I think, you know, other people have said sort of since, you know, people that I knew at the time and that have said, you know, I was very difficult to get close to, or I was quite prickly, I think was the word used. But yeah, I just wanted to sort of to pretend that like nothing could get close to me and that I was okay. That was the biggest sort of thing, because I think, you know, I'd learned that if you seem weak, and I think you get bullied more if you appear weak. So I just, you know, pretend things didn't bother me. But yeah, I don't think I think I was perhaps fooling anybody.
And I think subsequent to the death of your brother, you also suffered a number of other family bereavements during your teenage years. Is that right?
Yes, yeah. Sort of one a year, I think, for like the next 5 or 6 years. You know, which is, I mean, some of them were quite old, but it's, I think it made me insecure. I didn't feel that I had any sort of firm, like, grounding, because I just didn't know who would be next. You know, for a long time, I just thought, you know, I was going to die at the same age as my brother had, and you know, it was just quite destabilising. So I think one of the ways that I dealt with that was to not want to be close to anybody, because it was so much worse when they died. So that was the only way I could sort of deal with it at the time, is you just don't get close to people. And so that was my attitude towards people.
And we'll come in a lot more detail to things that happened when you were 19 years of age. But up until that age, did you have any close romantic or intimate relationships?
No, I'd had, I mean, the boyfriend at school, where sort of like their friend would ask you if you go out with them, and then like you just like nod at school, and that would be your boyfriend. You know, that was my only sort of like, you know, my only previous kind of boyfriend thing. So no, and I didn't, you know, that was the last thing that I was bothered about at all.
I think there came a time you describe in your statement, when you were at college, you describe having a breakdown, I think is the word you use. Can you tell us just briefly what happened to you and what the result of that was?
Yeah, it was. I had severe like social anxiety and things. So if I would go into a room and there was too many people, I couldn't go into that room, and I wouldn't speak. I had this real like bad anxiety, and one of the my maths tutors asked me a question, and I answered it, but I think so quietly he didn't hear me, and then he just made a complete. He just humiliated me, you know, as I was stupid, and I couldn't go. I never went back to that class. I couldn't go back. I couldn't go to my other classes. I think it just felt. You know, it was an adult that had been a bully, and I just, I'd had enough, I think, at that point. And I couldn't, they were threatened that I'd lose, if I didn't sort of start going back to classes, they'd kick me out. So I went to the doctor and explained everything, and they gave me some tablets, and I managed to go back. I never went back to his class, I couldn't, but I went back and finished like my other classes. But yeah, I couldn't do it, and I needed some, at that point I think I realised I needed something to help.
And again, I'll come back to it later, but that is it the lead up to you, aged 19, going to live in East London and moving out of your parents' home, aged 19?
Yes, yeah.
As I say, we'll come back to that in more detail later. Can I go back to the topic of hunt sabbing? So you've spoken about the first hunt sab that you went on when you were aged about 14. You returned, according to your witness statement, to that activity aged about 17 or 18 through someone you met through the Hackney and Islington Animal Rights group, is that right?
Yeah.
And then you describe in your statement that from then onwards you went out with different hunt sab groups at different times. Was that quite regular, that activity for you?
Yes. Yeah, I think I was going out, particularly like midweek, because obviously most people work, so a lot of the sab, it was big on like Saturdays, but I used to go out and sab midweek. So, and I used to collect people. I mean, I only had a mini at the time, but I would pick people up and then go to sort of a pick-up point and meet others. But yeah, I mean, over the years, I've sabbed with sort of 4 or 5 different groups.
And the mini, you learned to drive when you were 17, did you?
Yes.
And you had a car from the moment you could drive, is that
Yes.
position?
Yeah, I did. After I immediately left school, I did a YTS scheme and
Youth training.
youth trainings. Yes, yeah, or Young, Thick and Stupid, as we used to call it. But we had we paid £20.75p a week, and we were sort of in the middle of nowhere with nowhere to go. So I saved up everything, and then as soon as I learned to drive, I bought myself a car.
And that car, we see it mentioned in the papers, it was a red Mini, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah.
And so you would use that red Mini to get to hunt sab events, is that
Yes.
right? And sometimes with other people in company with you?
Yes.
How did you make contact with the different groups of hunt sabs? Can you give us an idea of how that worked?
I think I guess it's the people that you meet, because it wasn't announced anywhere. Or I guess maybe would phone up someone and just sort of say, what time they're meeting, because quite often the SABs would have like a meet card for the hunts, and so we would know where they were going to be and at sort of what time. So then there'd be like pre-arranged, we'll meet at such and such a station at 10, and so yeah, I guess it would have been me, because I didn't have like it was like pre-mobile phone, so we'd have had people's numbers to call. But actually, and sometimes if there wasn't other people there, I'd just go to the meet in my car.
So you might just travel alone to where you knew other people would be hunt sabbing?
Not always. I think the least, there was me and one other person sabbed the Surrey Union one weekday. But yeah, if there was no one else going, then I would go. I would drive to the meet or near it.
And in this period, so when you're aged 17 to 18 and you're going quite regularly, can you describe the sort of tactics that you and those you were with would deploy on a hunt sab?
Yeah, it was the it used to be, in the beginning it was anti-mate, so it was sort of like the sort of citronella-y like aerosol cans. But then later on, we used to buy the sort of like the big citronella things and then water them down and put them in spray bottles, and that was to mask the scent.
And so just to pause for people who don't understand, that's you going around spraying on what hedges, ground?
Yeah, I mean, particularly sort of sometimes if you see where the fox ran, then you'd wait until it was out of sight, and then if we would spray across the scent so that if the hounds came, all that they get is the sort of the citronella, so they lose the scent of the fox.
So you're creating a barrier between the hunt and the fox?
Yes, yeah. It just sort of confuses them, gives the fox a chance to get away, and sort of confuses them. And also we had hunting horns as well, and there was the gizmo, it used to play sort of the sound of like hounds in cry. So the hounds, if they hear like hounds going into cry somewhere else, then they know they're on a scent, so they'll come. So like you could do it in a field and literally the whole pack would come thinking they're onto something.
What sort of reaction did the huntspeople have to you and others using those tactics?
Not a very good one. There was quite a lot of violence. We've been in quite a few scrapes, and that, just our presence sometimes being there was enough to sort of to have unprovoked attacks and things. So yeah, I've seen quite a lot.
Could you help? Is there any particular example you can remember to give an idea of what that was like in practice?
Yeah, like there was one particular rider who she can make her horse buck, and so she used to position herself, and then I don't know what she would do to the horse, but it would sort of just lash out with both back feet, and I saw one of the sabs have her arm broken.
So kicked by the horse?
Yeah. But people being ridden down, we were always being like barged out of the way with the horses, and and then also, I mean, probably the worst sort of threat was either if like the riders were actually riding quite hard at you, and sort of one of my friends was taken off in an ambulance because they were ridden down, and I think had broken ribs, but bruises and and cut heads, and there were quite a lot of injuries. I have had a few like lumps and bumps and things, but I mean, I know around the time that I was sabbing, I think it was around when Mike Hill was killed, and also one of the other sabs, which was later, one of the ones that I think I used to sab with, was severely injured, very badly, and another like 15-year-old hunt sab was killed as well. So it was, and also the Surrey Union hunt master was charged with, I think it was ABH, for riding his horse over somebody, and sort of had lacerations in his head because he was sat in a fox earth. There's lots of them, and I mean, when it didn't, even if there wasn't, sort of injuries and stuff, but there was a lot of threats all of the time, it's quite often see them there with, pickaxe handles or pickaxes, spades, any kind of implement. But we were, whenever we went anywhere, we never carried, there was nothing in the van, because whatever happened, you knew you'd be stopped, you knew you'd be searched. If there was anything that they could remotely say was a weapon, then it would be taken and we'd be arrested. So, we didn't, I've heard sort of like some of the other evidence and that saying that it was us that caused it. It wasn't, and it got in the way of sabbing. That was the thing, is if you could avoid it, it was far better to avoid it, because it got in the way. You didn't want to be, fighting with somebody whilst the hounds are killing. So, that was the only reason any of us were out there, was to try and stop the animals being killed.
Did you ever see a hunt sab react to threats or threatened violence with violence, or the threat of violence themselves?
I've seen them respond, and I've done it. I've done it myself. You don't know. I'm not going to stand there, and I don't know many people that would stand there and be hit and not try and defend themselves. It would be worse. I think it'd be worse. I used to sab with someone that was a well-known pacifist, and he'd get beaten pretty much every time. He would just roll into a ball and would just end up getting a kicking. And you can't I won't do that. You know, I'm not going to be. I think it's more dangerous. You know, if at least they think that, you know, you will defend yourself. I think a lot of the time it sort of diffuses the situation. But no, not to go out to do it. It's pointless. You know, we were arrested for doing nothing anyway. So that's the last thing I think any of us would do, would be to go out and actually intentionally do it. You know, I don't remember seeing anything like that.
The inquiry's heard some evidence about the Brixton Hunt Saboteur Group. I think you went out with them sometimes,
Yes.
is that right?
Yeah.
And the inquiry has heard evidence to suggest that they were perhaps more robust in defending themselves than other hunt saboteur groups. Was that your experience of them?
Yeah, I think so. And also it was sort of, a lot of it was was reputation. You know, they had a really sort of fearsome reputation, you know, which used to be, I mean, it was quite funny at times. You know, we used to say, so that the hunt could hear us, it's like, what time is Brixton going to be here? And it, you know, in a way, it sort of, no hunt really wanted Brixton to, you know, to be there. But half the time it wasn't, you know, that wasn't sort of, it wasn't the case. It just meant that there was a load of sort of you know, Londoners turned up, you know, but it was very much, you know, they're not sort of country people, you know, they're city people. But yeah, you know, I mean, they wouldn't be pushed around. I think that was, you know, that's the difference. That was the difference in, you know, in sabbing with them.
And did they get that reputation because they were themselves more violent than the average hunter?
No.
Because it's the evidence that the inquiry has received from Andrew Coles, HN2, in his witness statement, it's paragraph 158 for those noting, suggests that the Brixton Hunt Sabs had a fearsome reputation for being violent at hunt sabotages. Do you disagree with that?
No, they had a fearsome reputation for standing up for themselves. But, you know, not the way that he puts it, no.
I guess I'm trying to seek your assistance with is how did they get that reputation if not by the use of violence in the first place?
I think there was a lot of them as well. So it was, you know, I mean that's the thing as well, when you call a sort of a mass hit on a hunt, there would be loads of people turning up, and I think, you know, it was just they were all Brixton, and it was. Yeah, it was more reputation than, you know, than actual sort of violence and stuff. It was the reputation, and it was enough.
The officer known by the nominal HN87 has described the Brixton Hunt Saboteur Group as trashing cars, so damaging vehicles of hunts. Did you see anything like that? Or did you become aware of them doing anything like that? On occasion, did you attend hunt sabs with HN2?
Yes.
What do you recall about the frequency of his involvement in hunt sabbing during the period you knew him?
I don't remember very much. I mean, there was a picture of us together, but I don't remember that. I didn't even realise that was me. I really don't have any recollection
and so
of him. I mean, I remember his van sort of being there. You know, it's more, you know, you look, because when you're out in sort of the field, you look for the vehicles and stuff. And so I remember piling into the back of, you know, of his van. But no, I mean, I remember HM1 more on Sabs than I do him. But, you know, we were at ones together.
Let's just get up that photograph whilst you've mentioned it onto the screen, please. UCPI 037116. A5, sir, in your bundle. Thank you. I think this is a photograph that's you've enlarged to assist the inquiry. And do we see to the left of the photograph Andrew Coles standing there? He appears to have camouflage trousers, a long sleeve top and a body warmer and a hat.
Yeah.
And next to him is you?
Yes.
it's described in the caption as Brixton Hunt Saboteurs on a Hunt Sab Action, Hampshire, 25th of January 1992. Are you able to assist with whether that caption is correct or not?
I believe it is actually, because it's written on the back of the photo.
So do you have the original photograph?
No, but I know who took it.
And so you've seen the original?
Yes, yeah.
And there's a date on the back which matches
Yes.
that? Thank you. Just whilst you've mentioned it, we can take that down. You've mentioned HM1, cover name Matt Rayner. You recall him being present on Hunt Sab
Yes.
events. And how frequently do you think you attended Hunt Sabs at which he was also present?
I'd say a few times, because he was West London, and like I was really good friends with some of the West London people. So if I was staying with them, then I'd end up going out with West London.
And what do you recall in terms of the sorts of things he would do on a Hunt Sab, if anything?
I don't really have that much. I just know he was, I can picture his face. I know that he was there. And a van, I think he had to have a blue van, I think. But I remember him being there, because he was also, he was called Chiswick. I think that was his nickname was Chiswick. And so I can remember him being there, and I also knew him from London Boots Action Group.
But in terms of what he might have done on any given
No,
Hunt Sab?
I don't remember.
Thank you. I want to change topics slightly now, just to ask you for your views and definitions on the ALF and ALF activism. You are aware that Andrew Cole's HN2 has said, and I'll come back to the detail, but has said that you were identified to him as an ALF girl.
Yeah.
How would you define an ALF activist?
Someone that regularly breaks the law, either to rescue animals or sort of non-violent direct action to shops and places that sell fur, things like that.
Coming to the detail then of what Andrew Cole's HN2 has said about your connection to the ALF. He has said in his witness statement that it was an individual that the inquiry is calling JRA.
Yes.
Have you got that on the cipher?
Yes.
Who told him that you were an ALF girl, to use the phrase in
Yes.
his witness statement? Could we have up on screen a report written or attributed to Andrew Cole's HN2? It's MPS 0730970. It's B6, they're in your bundle. I'm not going to read all of this into the record, in part for reasons not to breach a reporting restriction. But I just want to ask you this, please, Jessica. You should also have on your cipher list at the bottom the name of the person who's the subject of this
Yes,
report.
yeah.
Right, so you know who it's about.
I do.
And we see it's dated the 1st of May 1992. So that's a time when, in fact, you were living in East London, I think. Is that right?
Yes.
And the associates of the subject of the report include JRA, who is said to live with the subject of the report, and includes you. Firstly, did you know the subject of this report?
Yes.
And did you know JRA?
I don't. Hang on. Yes, I did.
And can you describe by May 1992 how well you knew JRA?
I knew who he was, and we probably knew each other to nod to, but I don't think I've ever had a conversation with him.
And in what circumstances?
Oh,
did
hunt
you
sabbing, yeah.
Other than hunt sabbing, excuse me, had you been involved in any other animal rights related action with JRA?
No. Do you mean like...
Direct action, so rescuing animals, something
No,
that
oh,
could
no,
fall
no.
under an ALF
No,
banner on your
no,
page?
not at all. No, I think we may have been on like the World Day. I think it was that sort of thing, or any like SAB sort of demos or something. But nothing. No, nothing. ALF. No.
And what about with the subject of the report?
No. Again, I just knew her through sabbing.
Thank you. We can take that down. Can you assist in any way with whether or not JRA would have been likely to describe you as connected to the ALF?
No, like I didn't know him. I didn't know him well enough, and at that point, I don't think that I would have known him probably as well as I did by the last time that I saw him. So that's sort of quite early on. So he wouldn't have known. Apart from the fact that I wasn't an ALF girl, no one describes anyone. You know, that's the last thing you would say to anyone about anyone. You know, it's stupid, and it's, you know, and it's quite dangerous as well. So there's not a chance that he would have said that. You know, even if it had been true, he wouldn't have said it. It wasn't true. You know, there's a lot of things wrong with that. So there was no way, I don't think, that he would have said that at all.
And just explain why it would be dangerous. Why are you saying that, or why you wouldn't have said it?
Because you wouldn't accuse somebody, you wouldn't say that about somebody in case it got back to, you know, to other people. It's, you know, we weren't stupid. You don't say, oh yeah, they did this or they did that. You know, no one knew any of the things that sort of happened. You wouldn't ever point to anyone and said that's what they are. You know, and particularly I didn't really know him.
In that first part of 1992, so say from January to May,
Yeah.
had you been engaging in activity that might be described as ALF activity? So we'll come to it later, for example, you were involved in rescuing chickens on a farm raid, for example. Had you been involved in any of that
No,
sort of activity
that was the
by then?
that was the first, like, sort of ALF thing that the only ALF thing I ever did.
And that's June, I think, of 1992 or thereabouts. So
Yeah,
after,
I can't.
certainly after you had met Andrew Coles.
Yes.
Amongst the people with whom you associated through hunt sabbing, were you aware of people who were engaged in ALF activity?
No.
Not at all.
No.
Did you come to learn that there were people involved in ALF activity? For example, you ended up becoming involved in something that might fall under that umbrella. Did you become aware that others were involved in similar actions?
No, I mean, the chicken thing, I only knew when I met the people that were actually involved. I didn't know anything about who beforehand or anything like that. You know, I knew about Jeff and that. So I used to go to Hackney and Islington animal rights things and some like London Greenpeace stuff. So I knew Jeff and I knew that he'd been involved in the Debenhams thing. So that was the only person that I knew that was sort of ALF.
That's Jeff Shepherd.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Yes, Jeff Shepherd.
Not at all. So you knew because he had been to prison that he had been involved in ALF activity. Was he the only person who came to your attention?
Yes. I think then, I mean, we used to get, I think in the house that we lived in, that we used to get like the ALFSG letters and stuff. So I knew a load of the names of people, but I didn't, you know, at that time, I didn't know, you know, they were just names. I didn't know any of them.
One of the things, I'm paraphrasing, but one of the things that Andrew Coles says in his witness statement is that one of the reasons he took steps to get closer to you and your friends was because he thought that would get him closer to an ALF cell. What's your comment on whether someone getting close to you and your friends might thereby get to people who were involved in ALF action?
No, it was the only cell was kind of the thing that happened was because of him. It wasn't, it wouldn't have happened and that. So he's kind of like, he created a cell that then I was, sort of in, if that's what you want to call it. I think it's a bit sort of, it implies that it was sort of like way more organised and stuff that it was. But no, I mean, that was purely because of him. That was the first sort of thing. And I think, I kind of had to be persuaded, I think, to do that. It was pretty sort of like nerve-wracking and, it took, I mean, it probably didn't take a lot of persuading, but, it wouldn't have been anything that I would have done had it not been for him.
Putting to one side you personally or a sense of organisation, just for the moment, not to discard your answer, but just a slightly different question. If a police officer was looking to find individuals involved in the ALF, would befriending you be likely to get them access to those people?
No.
One other thing I just want to ask you about that Andrew Coles HN2 says in his witness statement. He suggests that you had wider contacts with animal liberationists elsewhere in the UK. It's paragraph 277 for those noting. Did you have contacts with animal liberationists elsewhere in the UK, so outside of London?
I might have had friends in like other places. Like we sabbed quite a lot with like Brighton and that. So I had a couple of friends in Brighton. And I mean, people that, just friends that like that you meet places and stuff. I think he's mischaracterising it. I have friends that were interested in animal rights that were from different places, but it's not how he says it. That's like tarting it up a little bit.
And if it was suggested that the people that you knew around the country were involved with the ALF, what would you say to that?
I wouldn't have known, and I can't. I doubt it. But it's not anything that I would have known. There were friends that were interested in animal rights or that I sabbed with. That was as far as it went.
All right. I'll come back a little later in my questioning to ask you some more detailed questions about the Great Hooky Farm raid that you've mentioned in passing. All right. Can I just ask you about Hackney and Islington animal rights that you mentioned there?
Yes.
I think you say in your witness statement that a friend from college found out about the group through Time Out magazine. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
So advertised in a publicly available magazine?
Yes. Yeah.
And you went together to London to attend one of their meetings?
Yes.
And you say that the first meeting you recall involved, I think, meeting up with the group and then going out leafleting. Is that right? You met Paul Gravett through Hackney and Islington Animal Rights. How well did you come to know Mr. Gravett in the early 90s?
I mean, he's a friendly guy. So, every time I would meet him and stuff, we'd have a chat. And, we were just sort of interested in similar things. So he was a bit older than me. I mean, I think at times it used to feel like sort of like me and my friends were, because me and my friend were quite a bit younger than everyone else. So like some of the particularly the London Greenpeace sort of group, I think just thought of us as sort of like kids, So, but he was not him, he was always sort of like had the time of day for us, and same as Jeff. So it was only those two that I really sort of like knew from. They're the only ones that I really remember, I think.
So Jeff Shepherd in connection with Hackney and Islington Animal Rights, and Paul Gravett in connection with Hackney and Islington Animal Rights. Yeah. And you've told us what you knew about Jeff Shepherd. Did you have any reason to connect Paul Gravett to ALF activity based on what you knew?
No.
I think you describe in your witness statement continuing to attend meetings of the group after that first leafleting session, and you say that you got more involved with the group. What sorts of activities did you get involved in with that group?
It was just like picketing sort of shops and handing out leaflets. We used to do because it sort of I don't think it turned into London Boots Action Group, but London Boots Action Group became sort of a thing, and then that was more sort of the target then of what we did. It was like handing out leaflets for London Boots Action Group and we would picket like fur shops and I think Selfridges like one time. But there would be like a different thing, and also circuses and stuff, handing out leaflets and things. So it was like broad spectrum of animal rights causes.
And could you give us a flavour of what those pickets were like? Were you shouting slogans? Were you quiet? Were you handing out literature? Were you...
I always had leaflets because, that's, otherwise, people know what idea why you're there. Sometimes we would have like banners. I think somewhere somebody got onto a roof and held like a banner over the top, sort of like a bedsheet banner. And, so yeah, chanting kind of like, boots talk to beagles and, McDonald's used to go on the McDonald's things as well. So, but it was, there was nothing, there was no, like, probably the only thing that we got into trouble for was maybe obstructing the public highway, or that was what we used to get sort of stopped for. But, it was walking up and down outside the shop handing out leaflets, basically.
You've referred to London Boots Action Group. In your statement, I think you describe it growing out of Hackney and Islington Animal Rights Campaign. Can you just describe how you understood London Boots Action Group came about? I think, maybe that it was like we would go to the Hackney and Islington Animal Rights, but then there would be sort of, if there was I guess they would have happened at the same time, but we just tended to go more then to the London Boots Action Groups. It might have been that it was easier to get to because Hackney and Islington was, it was a bit of a pain to get to. But we just went to... ended up at more of the boots things, or that was a more regular picket, I think. I think in your witness statement you describe some of the same people. So was it quite fluid? There was a crossover.
Yes, yeah. It was like sometimes it could be any of probably about like 5 groups because the same people were in like all 5 groups. It was just that it was someone has said, you'd think it was a Hackney and Islington, thing, and it would turn out no, it was Boots Action Group, but it was all every issue was an important issue, to each group, so it could be the same people were always at the same things.
And you mentioned it being easier to get to London Boots Action Group meetings. Where did that group meet? Was it somewhere around Euston? I think we see reference to Ensley Street sometimes.
Yeah, I think so. I just remember that getting to Hackney and Islington was a bit of a pain. So if it was, I don't know where it used to be. Well, it would be at different shops like each time. So
I see the actual events.
Yes, yeah. It's like to like this time we're gonna go to Boots in wherever.
And in terms of the London Boots Action Group, just focusing on that, you've explained the sorts of activities that you would do. Again, through that group, did you come to know of anybody who was involved in ALF-style criminal activity?
No.
So the suggestion that London Boots Action Group acted as a front of some kind for individuals who wanted to make connections with other like-minded ALF activists, what do you say to that?
I don't think so.
Did you ever experience anything in your time associating with members of London Boots Action Group which came anywhere close to discussion of ALF activity, involvement in rather than... Yeah, no, it was, you would go, you'd have like a sort of a thing to do that day. You go, you hand out the leaflets for however many hours, you go to the pub and that was it. And then the next thing, you say, oh, we're going to do such and such next weekend, we go and picket so-and-so and that. But I don't remember, it just didn't happen, I don't... So the only, again, it's HN2, that is the only, that's the only thing that ever came out of anyone that I knew from like London Boots Action Group or anything that you're describing. That's the only time that ever sort of ever happened. And just to be clear, the only time is the Great Hookley Farm Road. So not the case that, for example, if you went to the pub after a London Boots Action Group event, people might say, would you be interested in that sort of action?
No.
That didn't happen?
No.
You mentioned earlier that HN1, cover name Matt Rayner, was somebody you knew through this group.
Yes, yeah.
Are you able to recall anything about the nature of his participation in London Boots Action Group?
He was just sort of, he I just remember him sort of being there. So he would hand out leaflets or be holding the banner, or, it's the same as everyone else, really. There was nothing about him that kind of stood out as was memorable. He was just one of the group. The only thing that the only thing that I remember particularly about him is that somebody had said to me, or it was kind of common knowledge amongst people, it's like he's, don't trust him. There was something about him that some people were suspicious of. And, at that sort of one point I remember I actually said to him, he'd asked me something, but my response to him was, well, I wouldn't tell you you're dodgy. Sort of kind of a bit as a joke, but also as if, I didn't trust him because other people didn't trust him. So, but that's the only time I ever really remember actually sort of like in any kind of conversation or anything with him.
I just want to break that down a little bit. If you look at your cipher list, there's an individual that the inquiry is calling George.
Yeah.
That you say in your witness statement that George was he the sort of the root of the speculation or the suspicion?
He was the person that said that to me, yes.
And was the suspicion that HM1 Matthew Rayner was a police officer or something less specific?
I don't remember necessarily a police officer, just something, just be careful. I think was like, just don't trust him. So I don't think I would have specifically said like that it was, he was a police officer. All I remember was like, he's a bit dodgy, don't trust him. Particularly just the word dodgy, that was sort of, I remember that exact word being used.
Was it ever suggested to you by George that he had any sort of evidence or confirmation?
Not that I remember. He may well have told me, but I can't remember.
And I think you described saying something to HM1 to the effect that... Could you repeat what you said? Just clarify.
So I wouldn't tell you anyway because you're dodgy.
So you said that to his face?
Yeah.
And do you remember what that was about?
No.
Do you remember how he reacted?
I think just sort of like, shrugged. I don't think, there was nothing. He didn't I didn't kind of say, oh, yeah, I could tell he was, there was sort of no reaction. I think just thought I was a bit of a prat. But yeah, he didn't, no, like, not as though he'd just been caught or anything like that. No real reaction.
As far as you were aware, was there any particular incident that gave rise to the suspicion?
Not as far as I know.
And as far as you were aware, did anybody ever directly confront HM1 Matt Rayner?
No, I don't think so.
With the suspicion?
I think people treated him differently. That was... But then I think, like, the longer that he was sort of there, I think those sort of suspicions died down.
So is your recollection that the suspicions were mainly focused on when he arrived on the scene, as it were?
It may have been, or maybe when George did, but when they sort of, I think initially it was, there was something that didn't seem to be, that George had sort of an issue with. But then I think like the longer that, that was just ignored and that he was around and sort of doing stuff, I think it just kind of, it was like, well, George is maybe, being a bit, overly suspicious. So, yeah, it just kind of, after a while, it just went away.
So the suspicion fizzles out and HM1
Yes.
Matt Rayner carries on
Yeah.
As before. I won't bring it up on the screen, but I think you've been able to produce to the inquiry 2 address books from this time,
Yeah.
in which you had written the cover name and cover address and I think a contact number, pager or phone number for HM1, is that right?
Yes.
And likewise, you had the details for the person who was known to you as Andy Van, so HM2.
Yes.
Do you have any recollection of how you came to get the contact details for HM1?
No, I don't know, because I can't ever imagine me ever going to get in touch with him because of what I'd been told about him being sort of dodgy. So I don't know why I would have it. But then again, I mean, if it was a sabbing thing, because, I know, I mean, I've been in his van for sabbing and stuff, so it's, it might have been that, even sort of like for a pickup somewhere, so.
So do you have a clear recollection that you travelled to hunt sabbing in the van of Matt Rayner HM1?
Yeah, I remember being in sort of like, I mean, the inside of a van is like the inside of many other vans now. But yeah, I do, because I can remember, you're always aware of particularly like the drivers and stuff. And so I remember being, in his van and going to some hunt somewhere.
All right, thank you. I touched upon it before. I'm going to come back to it in more detail now. The time came, didn't it, when you were aged about 19, where you moved from your parents' home to an address in East London.
Yes.
And we've gisted it, we've redacted the precise address, so I'm just going to refer to it as your East London address, but I think you understand what I'm referring to. At the time you moved there, I think you describe it as early 1992. Are you able to be any more precise?
Not really, no.
And could you give us an idea of how many months you lived there for?
I guess it's about 6 months, I would think. Something around about that. It's really hard to be, precise.
And how did you come to live in your East London address?
My friend that used to go to Hackney and Islington, that found the Hackney and Islington animal rights thing, she was living there.
And so she was, like you, attending Hackney and Islington Animal Rights.
Yeah.
Did she have any other involvement in animal rights activity?
The same as I did. I mean, for a long time, like, we would do most things together.
And do you know how she found that accommodation?
I think one of the other people that lived there was someone from London Boots Action Group.
The house itself, it was a house, wasn't it?
Yes.
And it was occupied by multiple individuals,
Yes.
so shared
Yep.
accommodation. And you took up a room in that shared house, is that
Yes.
right? Could you describe your room, where it was in the house?
It was the front top bedroom, so it looked out over the tiny little front garden and the road.
And what furniture was in that room?
I think there was just like 2 divan bed things. So yeah, there was like my divan bed, I think maybe like a little table, and then like another bed that was sort of under the window.
And were those single beds, double beds?
Yes, single.
How many mattresses in the room?
1, because mine was the only one that had a mattress. The other one was just the base bit. I don't know if that's the actual, maybe that's the divan bit, but it didn't have a mattress on the top.
And no mattresses on the floor or anywhere
No.
else? Did you have a dog when you lived at that address?
Not initially, no.
At some point you did?
Yes.
Are you able to assist us with when?
It will be. I've written it in my statement. It was. Yeah. It was.
We can have it up on the screen to help you.
Oh, okay.
It's
Sorry.
not at all.
Okay.
It's not at all. You don't have to apologise. It's Jessica's witness statement, please. UCPI 037092, page 26, paragraph 4.12. It was the top of page 26, please. And you say there, we only got a dog in August 1992. I know this because we got him at the Deptford Free Festival, which was held on the 1st of August 1992.
Yes. Yeah. I did also have my dog there at the time, but she didn't. She only would come for like a few days because she lived with my mum and dad. So I know that I had her at that time because we went to the Deptford Festival with 1 dog, and we came back with 2 dogs and a pigeon. We found a pigeon on the way, so that's how I remember.
All right. So the dog that you're referring to as having before the Deptford Festival was your dog that you had when you lived with your parents.
Yes.
Who was essentially coming to visit in
Yes.
East London regularly.
No, not really. I would just take her for like a few days and stuff. So, and then take her home.
When your dog stayed with you at the East London address, where did your dog sleep?
She always slept in my bed.
In your bed?
In my bed, yes.
So with you?
Yes.
Did she ever sleep on the other single divan base in your bedroom?
No, she wouldn't. She never slept anywhere else. My parents used to be mad about it, but she never slept anywhere else when I was at home, and slept in my bed. Because I rescued her from one of the places that I worked, and yeah, she was quite she was very attached. So yeah, she always slept in my bed with me.
Right, so very much your dog.
Yes.
Just sticking with the setup of the shared house in East London, if I can, for a moment. You've told us about your bedroom front upstairs bedroom. In your witness statement, you also describe that your friend who you went to Hackney and Islington Animal Rights with, she had a bedroom in the house as well.
Yes.
Where was that room?
It was directly below mine. So when you went in the front door, it was to the left. So it was, I think it would have been originally like a living room of the house, but it was turned into a bedroom. So she was sort of directly beneath me.
And did her bedroom have a television in it?
It did, yes.
Did your bedroom have a television in it?
I think it was a, a portable, it's like a little portable black and white TV, but most of the time it was in her room.
So was there only one television in the house?
Yes.
And it was that television
Yes.
you just described, and most of the time it was in her bedroom.
Yeah.
Rather than your.
Her room was I guess it must have been like it was like a communal sort of room. You know, everyone used to congregate in her room. Probably because it was downstairs and stuff. But it was that was kind of if anyone would be sat talking, it would be in her room.
Was there a separate living room?
I think so. I don't really. There was a room because as you went through, so you go through the front door, like her room was there, and then I think there was another housemate's room was there, and then you went through another room, which I think was it was a sort of must have been a living room. And then into the kitchen. So yeah, that was the other sort of living room, but I used to just hang out in her room mostly.
Right, so the living room, such that that wasn't your go-to place to, for example, watch television. Is that what I'm understanding?
No, my go-to place was her room.
Was there a sofa in the living room, if we call it that?
Yes.
And was that in frequent use or not?
Yes, yeah, I think it was. The only reason I know that it's in there is because I've got pictures of at some point there were kittens there, and I've got pictures of the kittens on the settee, and that's how I remember it was in that room. But yes, we must have. If there was more people, I think we would have been in that sort of room. But I don't really remember that room very much.
Did you tend to mix equally with all of the people who lived in that shared house, or were you closer to your friend who?
I was close. Sorry, I keep interrupting you.
Not at all. Were you closer to the friend you'd moved into the house with, essentially?
Yes, yeah. The other people. I mean, there was someone that had lived there beforehand, like a guy in the back room who we didn't really ever see, and then there was another, like a student that was in the room next to mine upstairs. But they weren't animal rights people, so they were we didn't really see them, but like the other people who lived in the house were animal rights people. We all knew each other from like demos and things.
And so how many of you fell under that umbrella of animal rights people? Obviously you, your friend, and?
One of the other girls that lived at the back, and then sort of when the guy moved out, so he left, and then we had another animal rights person in there then. So there would have been, I think, four of us, and then after I moved out, then it just went a bit mad. There was loads of people lived there.
Right. Let's focus on the time that you.
Sorry.
Not
yes.
at all. When you describe people congregating in your friend's room and watching television, are you referring to all the people in the house? Some of the people in the house? Can you?
No, it's probably more me and more me and my friends, and I guess sometimes the girl from the other room in the house. And then if anybody came over, I think that's where we were sort of, we would be. But I used to, me and my friend used to spend a lot of time together, so it was more in her room.
And would you commonly spend time in her room if she wasn't there?
Yeah, I guess so. I was watching the TV.
So used as a TV room
Yes,
to an extent?
Yeah.
I think in Andrew Coles's witness statement, HN2, he describes a TV room in the house, and your understanding of what he's describing is your friend's room, is that right, rather than the living room of the house?
I would think so. I don't remember a TV being in the other room. There may have been. I can't say for certain, but she and I used to hang out in her room and watch the telly.
And finally, were there any spare bedrooms in that house,
No.
or were they all occupied?
No, they were all occupied.
Could I just ask you to look at a report that the inquiry's retrieved, attributable to HN2? It's MPS 0745980, and it's dated the 23rd of June of 1992. It's B9 in your bundle, sir. And Jessica, this is a report about you. I will come back to other aspects of this, but just now I want to ask you about the first sentence of the substantive content at the bottom, which says, as of the 23rd of June 1992, Jessica has recently moved to Jessica's East London address from her parents' address. She will be sharing the house with Privacy, who will move from Dulwich when he returns to the UK from a holiday. As at June 1992, how accurate is this report to say that you had recently moved to the East London address?
I think I was under the impression that I'd moved before that. I thought I'd been there longer than that. I can't say for absolute certainty, but I was under the impression that I'd moved there before that.
We know, I'll come on to it later, that in the summer or early autumn of 1992, you received a job offer to go and work in France.
Yes,
is that right?
Yeah.
And so you're able to date when your living at the East London address came to an end with some accuracy.
So it would have been before this, because I lived there for months, not just like that made it 1 month. No, it was longer than that. So it would have been there before June.
Thank you. Whilst you lived at this address and before you took up the job in France, I think you say in your witness statement that you were unemployed.
Yes.
And you describe pooling your money. I think you were receiving some benefits and pooling it to feed the cats.
Yes.
All right. I'm about to move on to another topic. I'm just going to pause and check. Are you okay to carry on for a little bit without a break?
Yeah.
Yep. We can have one if it would.
No. Let's carry on.
All right. The topic I'm going to move on to is you meeting HN2, Andrew Coles.
Oh, okay.
All right. Does that make a difference as to whether or not you'd like?
No, let's carry on.
I think you say in your witness statement that at the time you knew him as Andy Van, is that right?
Yes.
Is that the name that he was commonly known by
Yes.
amongst your friends and acquaintances?
Yes.
You met him, I think your best recollection is in 1992, is that right? We saw that photograph earlier, it was from January 1992, of the two of you on a hunt sab. Does that...
Yeah, it might well have been before that. Again, it's very, very difficult to say. But looking at that, it looks... I think it was probably before that.
So met him before that picture is taken?
Yeah,
obviously.
I would have said like 1991.
But towards the end of that year? Or could it?
Yeah, you would have
earlier?
thought so. I don't think I knew him sort of that long. It's very difficult to say. I'm not trying to be difficult. It's really difficult to put a time, a time sort of on it. But I would say, judging by like the fact that we're together in that picture, I would have thought, yes, I'd have known him sort of, that would have taken me well into 1991 when we knew each other.
And in 1991, were you still living at your parents' address?
Yes.
So when you met him, if I ask you relative to other events, when you met him, it was before you moved to the East London address?
Yeah, I think it was.
Now, at around this time, we're not going to give away your precise date of birth because of your anonymity, but you were born, I think, in 1972, is that right?
Yes.
And at this time, late 1991, early 1992, you were 19 years old, is that
Yes.
Is that right? You describe yourself in your witness statement as a young 19-year-old.
Yeah.
Can you explain what you mean by that?
I was very naive, I think, and quite stupid, to be perfectly honest. Now I kind of cringe to think of myself back then. But yeah, I was very, very naive. I certainly wasn't sort of like worldly wise, and not certainly when it comes to like boyfriends or anything like that. But yeah, I think I was quite young and naive.
You have, since you gave your witness statement, found some photographs of yourself.
Yes.
And I'm going to ask that we look at them now. When I say we, they are redacted for everybody else to protect your anonymity, but you should have available to you, if not they'll be handed to you, and the chairman has a number of photographs. This is not every single photograph you've provided, but a selection of them. Do you follow?
Okay.
And I'll use their reference numbers so that it can be traced, but only you and the chairman at the moment have the photographs in front of you, unredacted. Okay. Just to reassure you. So first of all, you should have a photograph with the number, the reference UCPI 037352.
Yes.
Is that a photograph of you in a vehicle?
Yes, it is.
Could you describe what the photograph shows?
Yes, it was after, or what it shows, or what it.
Both.
Yeah, that's me. That's me in the back of my van, with picking up a bike from the south of France.
So it's taken whilst you were living in France?
No, it was taken after I lost my job in France, and I was back here, but all my stuff was over there, and so I had to go and pick it up. So myself and one of the other people that's ciphered, we went over, and it was cheaper to actually drive down to collect all my stuff. So we went down there in December 93 and collected all of my things.
So in fact, you're a little bit older in this photograph.
Yes, yeah.
This is more like 20 or 21.
However old I would have been in 93.
So you would have turned 21 during
Yes, yeah, that's right, yes.
All right, thank you. Can we turn over? You should have UCPI 037353. No, our bundle does not have that photograph in it.
Oh.
No, all the best laid plans. It will be at the back if it's the same as our bundle, but it's a photograph on a beach. Don't hold it up because of the cameras.
Okay.
So it should be a photograph on a beach.
Yes.
All right, that's you, is it, on the beach?
It is, yes.
And can you tell us when that was taken?
It was the same trip, so in like the December. And the reason I know it's December is because as we drove, and we drove on like not on the péages, so we went sort of cross country, and I remember that because it was like we drive through all these little places, had loads of Christmas decorations and trees and that. That's how I know that's the only way that I know it's December. And also I asked them to take that picture of like, look, here I am on the beach in December, to annoy everyone back home.
But again, that's you aged more like 2021
Yes,
than 19.
yeah.
Thank you. Next photograph that I wanted to draw your attention to is UCPI 037354. So it should be a photograph, I think, of you crouching with, if you go back to the beginning, it may well just be the second photograph.
No, it isn't.
Okay, perhaps what I'll do is, rather than take mine,
I've got it.
the bundle is in a slightly different order. So it's the penultimate photograph.
Yes.
And do we see you there crouching? There's a dog on the other side of a fence.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, can you describe when and in what circumstance this was taken?
It was the same trip, and so this was me going round, and because I'd been there for a year and looked after all these dogs, this is me going and saying goodbye to all the dogs that I used to look after.
All right. And so I think we've got a series of these. If we just use your bundle, if you go back to the beginning of the bundle to make it easier for you and the chairman to follow, we've looked at the first one in the bundle, which is the photograph ending 352. If we turn to the second in the bundle, we should have a photograph UCPI 037360. Is that you, again, on the same trip in France?
Yes.
With a dog?
Yes.
And over the page, please, you should have a photograph UCPI 037359.
Yes.
And is that the same trip?
It is, yeah, because that's my bike in in the hallway before obviously loading it up.
So that's you going back to collect your bike, as you mentioned
Yes,
before?
yeah. I mean, all of my stuff was over there. So because I left sort of quite quickly because I'd been injured over there. So we went into hospital and came out and just came straight home. So all of my stuff was over there. So I'd gone back to collect everything, and I had a bike when I was over there. So yeah, we brought that back as well.
And that's you cuddling one of the dogs that you had
Yes.
looked after? Is that
Yes.
the position?
Yes, Buster Brown.
Was that the dog's name?
Yes. I mean, I know if you want, or I can tell you all the dogs' names if you want, but
If we just turn over in the bundle, the next one should be a photograph, I think, of you. It's 037358 with a much larger black and white dog this time.
Yeah. Do you want to know who he is? Orion.
Okay, that's Orion, and you, again, this is you. We see your face here, aged 2021.
Yes.
And then over the page, UCPI, in fact, you've got UCPI 037357. That's you with Buster
Brown,
Buster
yeah.
Brown again in the hallway. Over the page, you've got UCPI 037356. I think that's you with another dog now, a
Jumbo.
brown.
Yeah.
Yeah, part of the same trip.
Yes.
And then you should have a photograph UCPI 037355. Could you describe what this one shows? It's a little bit different.
Yeah, it was. We'd stopped off somewhere, and it was a terrible picture. But yeah, it was the sort of the mountains in the background, and it was a nice scene. But yeah, that's why we took the photo.
Right, so part of the same trip, 1993.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And we see you on the left in a pair of jeans and a black and white jacket.
Yes.
Perhaps looking a little bit chilly on this one, but standing here with a field and some mountains in the background.
Yes, yeah. I'd actually, the reason I look sort of quite pained is I had a lighter. I used to smoke in those days. I had a lighter in my pocket, and I'd accidentally flicked the lighter and burnt my finger. That's why that's pained expression is on my face.
So that's not the temperature outside, but the temperature in your pocket.
No, it was I burnt my finger.
Thank you. How representative are those photographs, to the extent you can help, with how you looked when you were 19? Do you think you changed between turning 19 and turning 21 physically?
No, I still don't. I think I look quite. I'm surprised, how young I looked. So yeah, no, I don't think I don't think I changed. It was a year. Sort of. So no, I hadn't changed at all. I still think I look very young.
Right. So if the inquiry wants to get an idea of what you looked like when Andrew Cole's HN2 met you, those are a representative example.
Yes. Yes.
You say in your witness statement that when you met him, or when you knew him, HN2 told you that he was 24 years of age. Is that right?
Yes.
And you say that you had no reason to disbelieve him when he told you that.
No.
Can I ask you, how confident are you in your recollection that he told you he was 24?
Very.
Particular?
Because it's, as I suppose, as you, there's kind of like a sort of not exactly a saying, but it's like that women kind of mature like quicker than sort of like blokes don't mature quite as quick as sort of as women. So it's sort of, so like the age kind of thing, it's like, well, he's, you know, that probably puts him a similar age to me because, you know, sort of a bit slow. But so it wasn't too much kind of older, if you see what I mean. You know, anything like older than that, but like 5 years sort of older. But I mean, also well, apart from the fact I didn't think that he wouldn't be telling the truth. I don't know why anyone would not tell the truth about something like that. So, I never gave it any thought. I mean, I know that other people did and thought that he was older, but it never crossed my mind that he wouldn't be.
The inquiry has documentation. I won't bring it up, but I'll just give the reference for those who want to note it. MPS 0726987 has documentation that records his cover date of birth, so the date of birth he was supposedly using when he was deployed, as the 14th of September 1964. So in 1992, that would have had him turning 28. Are you sure he didn't tell you he was 27 or 28?
No, 24.
You, I think, know from what you've learned since that in his real life, his date of birth was in 1960, so he was more like 31, 32 when you met him.
Yes.
Had you known he was really 31 or 32, do you think you would have reacted to him differently?
Yeah, because it's it's not right. It isn't. It's not right. There's no reason for someone that age to be trying to go out with someone that's that much younger. It's not. It's a creepy. It's inappropriate. It's really inappropriate. And at that age, it would have been, you know, my age, it would have been sort of, you know, he was sort of like, that sounds terrible to say, but, you know, like old age, you know, that at 19, someone that's that age is like old, really old. So no, it's kind of gross. So yeah, no, it would have been, I mean, I don't know that I've done anything different in the circumstances of how it happened, because of how it happened. But no, like that's just, it's not. It would just have been wrong. It's not a comfortable thing, you know. When you think someone that age sort of being interested in someone of 19, it's not. There's something wrong with it.
And is that how you would have felt at the time?
Yes, yeah. It's kind of it's bordering on sort of school teacher student sort of thing. It's not right.
I'm about to move on slightly topic-wise. I wonder, given the time, whether it's an appropriate time for a break.
Yes. Would you mind if we broke now for 15 minutes to enable the
Yes,
shorthand
certainly.
writers to have a rest?
Yes.
And you indeed.
Yeah, thank you.
Doing all right so far?
Yes, thank you.
All rise.
Are you all right to carry on? I know that
Yes.
you were just potentially going to ask your support.
I was going to
Something.
get polo, but it's fine. Thank you.
Sorry to expose you. All right. Before the break, I was asking you some questions about HN2's age. I want to look now at some reports attributed to him that report on your age or your date of birth.
Okay.
Could we have on screen, please, MPS 0740294? It's B2, sir. Thank you. And Jessica, you'll see this is a report dated the 25th of March of 1992, and it's the earliest report in time that the inquiry has retrieved, naming you specifically, and attributed to HN2. We see there your name was given, Jessica, your vehicle, the Mini 1000, down there in the middle, and born, it says approximately 20 to 25 years. So it's giving your age as approximately 20 to 25 years. We know that you were 19 at the date of this report, is that right?
Yes.
Had you had any conversation with HN2 which would have given him the impression that you were older than your real age?
No. I would never have said that I was older than that, so no.
Are you able to help us? On the basis of your answers earlier today, it appears you probably met him in late 1991. We've seen a photograph of the two of you on a hunt sab in January 1992.
Yes.
So by March 1992, you knew each other,
Yes.
certainly.
Yeah.
Are you able to assist with what, if anything, you had told him about your age by this stage?
He would have known. I don't specifically remember telling him, but he would have known. You know, it was never a secret. You know, that's sort of, yeah, he would have known.
All right. If we take that report down, please. I'm going to jump ahead in the chronology to September of 1992, MPS 0739788. It's B15, sir. And the content of the report, please. This is a report whilst you were in France, Jessica, and this gives your date of birth as circa, so around 1975. That would have made you about 16 or 17. That's too young, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Did you ever give HN2 the impression that you were born in or around 1975 and were
No.
much younger?
No. You know, I've never ever lied about my age, any age.
And if we take that down, please, and then look at a report that comes between the two that we've just looked at, so MPS 0745980, B9, sir. So this is a report dated the 23rd of June of 1992, so about halfway between the other two that we've looked at. Another report the inquiry attributes to HN2, and this one gives your date of birth as 1972, so this one is accurate.
Yes.
Could we look, whilst we're on this report, at the content of it as well? We've looked at this briefly before. It reports you having recently moved to the East London address. But I want to look at what's on the next page, please. The top of the next page. And it says this about you. Jessica is an active hunt saboteur. That is accurate.
Yes. Yeah.
And then it goes on, who has committed acts of criminal damage to Surrey Union Hunt members' property in the past, having been influenced by seasoned campaigners Privacy and Joe Tex. Had you committed acts of criminal damage to Surrey Union Hunt members' property?
No.
Not even in the course of the sort of disorder or violence that you've said Hunt Sab's experienced?
No. not at all.
Had you been present when acts of criminal damage to Hunt members' property had been carried out?
Not that I remember, no. It's, all of that doesn't sound, it's not right. I don't think it's right at all.
Can I ask you at this stage about the person named there, Joe Tex?
Tax.
It should be Tax.
Tax.
Another witness has suggested that.
Yeah.
We see that. Was Joe Tax somebody who you knew?
Yes.
And in what context did you know Joe Tax?
Him and Privacy were really good friends of mine.
So good friends.
Yes.
And was that through hunt sabbing or something else?
Yes.
Through hunt sabbing?
Yes.
Did you know Joe Tax to also go by the name Thomas Frampton ever?
Yes, that was his actual name.
So Joe Tax is a nickname.
Yes. Yeah, his name was Tom Frampton.
And how long had you known him by June 1992, roughly?
Maybe a couple of years.
Did you remain in contact with him thereafter, so through into 94, 95
Yes.
and beyond?
Yeah. I think the last time I saw him would have been 97.
Did you ever come into contact with the undercover officer, as we now know her to be, going by the name of Christine Green, HN26?
Not at this stage, no.
Does it follow that at some later stage you did?
Yes.
Can you tell us when you came into contact with her?
2017.
So very much more recently.
Yes, after I found out.
And what did you find out? in
No, after I
2017?
found out about HN2.
And when you say you came into contact with her, do you mean direct face-to-face contact?
Yes.
Can you describe the circumstances in which you came into contact with her?
Yes, her and Joe were living in Scotland at the time, and I think I just I mean, I didn't think I took it particularly well when I found out all about HN2, and Joe was a really close friend of mine, and I just thought, he can tell, he might be able to tell me something, because it's the not knowing and how much of, everything. I know we're going to go on to that later about sort of finding out, but I just wanted to know whether he could tell me anything, who else or anything like that. So I travelled all the way up to see if I could see him.
And I'm going to just lead you through this, just to be...
Okay.
Christine Green has real name anonymity, so I'm just going to
Yeah,
be a
no,
little
that's
careful.
fine.
I'm going to ask you some specific questions. You travelled to see Joe Tax, who you'd been friends with by them for decades.
Yes.
And when you travelled to see Joe Tax, were you expecting to see the officer known as Christine Green as well?
But I knew they were still together.
And you say still together.
Yes.
What, if anything, do you know about when they first got together?
I know that what I knew at the time was that Joe and Privacy had split up, and then the next thing I heard was that he was in a new relationship, and then I heard that she'd gone to Spain and he'd gone to find her.
And are you able to assist with when you heard he was in this new relationship?
That would have been probably 90, I don't know, 97, 98, I guess. Maybe even yeah, I mean, I last saw him in I think it was 97. I'm trying to work out how old my child was. But yeah, it wasn't sort of long after that. I never saw him again after that, and that's the last that I ever remember hearing about him, was that she'd gone to Spain and he'd gone off to find her.
And I just want to ask it in this way. How confident can you be that that was before 1999? Even if you're not quite sure of the date? Or before the turn of the century, let's put it that way.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure it was before then, yes.
And how had you heard that he was in a relationship with Christine Green? Was it directly from him?
No, it would have been from like other hunt sabs that I knew, possibly even privacy.
And to the best you're able to assist, say if you're not, did you form an impression as to how widely the relationship was known about amongst hunt sabs, for example?
If I would have known, I think anyone would have known, because at that point I wasn't in like direct contact with him, so it was, I think it was well known, and that was the last that we sort of, he'd gone to Spain, and that was the last that I heard.
When you heard that, did you have any idea that the person Joe Tax was in a relationship with was in fact an undercover officer, or was it just a woman that he was in a relationship?
No, it was just a woman that he was in a relationship with, and a animal rights person. That was all that I knew at the time.
Did you ever see him with that woman?
No.
And when you went to see him in or around 2017, when you found out about HN2, that relationship was ongoing?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Coming back to the report on the screen, sorry, I should just, before I move on, I think what you said is that you learnt about that relationship possibly from the person whose name is under the privacy redaction here. Is that a
possibly
definite memory or a possibility?
It's either, I remember speaking to her about it, but I don't know whether I had told her or she had told me, but it was, it would have been sort of probably widely known in SAB circles, I think, because she was a SAB as well.
She being
Christine
Green.
Green. Yes.
But certainly the person under this privacy redaction is somebody who appeared also to know about the relationship in the 1990s.
Yes.
Is that
Yeah.
if I'm understanding your evidence correctly? All right, thank you. Going back to the report then, it carries on after it says Joe Tex. It says this about you. Recently, she has taken part in ALIU investigations. We understand that to be a reference to the Animal Liberation Investigation or Inspection Unit.
Yeah, investigation unit.
And has expressed an interest in Animal Liberation Front style liberation raids. Had you taken part in any ALIU investigations as at June 1992?
No, that was never anything that I was involved with. Yeah, I don't know. There's several references to it, and it was never anything I was involved in. So I don't know what he means, or I don't know why he said that.
So not by June 1992, and as if I understand you correctly, not ever.
No.
And so that it's clear what or whether you and I are speaking about the same sort of activity, was ALIU activity generally going to premises, inspecting them, perhaps taking documents and returning them afterwards,
Yes,
that sort of thing?
Yeah. The only thing that I know about that, and it's I'm going out of sequence again, but there was like an ALIU investigation at somewhere, a Ministry of MAF place, Ministry of
Agriculture and Food.
Yeah, whatever that stands for. And I think documents were taken. It was to do with badger cull, and some people were arrested at it, and gave our address, and so our address was raided. They didn't actually live there, but they gave our address, and it was raided.
Sorry to Paul, was that your East London address or your
later
South
it was
London
the
address?
South London address. Yeah.
So as at June 1992, that couldn't have been the incident. That
No, it
was in
wasn't.
anyone's
Sorry, I
mind.
said no. I went jumped forward.
I'm just
a bit.
clarifying. That's all right.
Yes,
So
yeah.
later that might have been, albeit indirect, a connection between you because of your address and an ALIU action.
Yes, yeah, but I think that HN2 was involved with ALIU at that point, so it wouldn't have been. It was known, I think it would have known that was nothing to do with us.
certainly as we see this as June 1992, not accurate, is your...
No, not at all.
I'm coming back, we've mentioned it a few times, and I'm come back in detail to it, but the Great Hooky Farm raid is something that you were involved in.
Yes.
With HN2. That's June 1992, so around the time of this report, more or less. When it says here that you had expressed an interest in ALF front-style liberation raids, is it possible that by this time you had expressed an interest in taking part in the Great Hooky Farm raid?
I don't think, I mean, obviously I was on it, I did it, but I don't think I ever sort of sat down and said, you know, do you know what, I think I'd like to do one of those. It's, you know, it wasn't like that at all. You know, it was planned, and I think I was asked. So it wasn't as though I, you know, sat there and said I thought I should do some of that.
But having been asked, you were willing?
Yes.
Were you ever involved in any other action that could be described as an ALF front-style liberation raid?
No.
Or was Great Hooky Farm the only one?
Yes.
I'll just finish off this paragraph. It continues, now that she has moved to London and is living with other animal rights activists, she is likely to commit criminal acts against wider animal abuse targets with them. What do you say to that?
I don't know why he would say that. Yeah, I don't know. It's just, it makes it look far more interesting than the actual truth of the situation.
Was there any reality in the suggestion that moving to the East London address where other animal rights activists were living, you were involving yourself more in animal rights activism of any kind, or was your moving to that address unrelated?
No, I mean it was unrelated, and sort of with the people that were in like the house where I'd moved to, so I was the only one that took part in, or there was two of us that took part in the raid. So it wasn't, you know, from what that sort of sounds like, it's, you know, I'd moved there and everyone was, you know, was doing stuff, but it wasn't. So I don't think the other people were involved in anything at all. You know, it's not, we happened to move to London, and, you know, my involvement in the Great Hooky Farm was through him. So that was, you know, that was the, I mean, whether he's unlikely to commit more criminal acts because I was with him, I don't know. But I think it wasn't long before I went to France. So I mean, at this point, I don't even know whether I was sort of. I guess I would have got the job about now. So it's just it's just speculation. You know, there isn't any truth to that about the more likely to commit criminal acts.
All right, thank you. We can take that down.
And sorry, can I just say as well, that's not right what he said about the telephone thing either.
Let's put it back up on the screen.
Yeah, that's not right.
Right, so I'll read it into the record. The final paragraph reads, there is no telephone in the two-storey terraced house, but Jessica has obtained a radio telephone for her own use from her father.
Yeah, no, that wasn't true. When I was sabbing, so I would have been actually at home, the local sab group had rented it was one of the first like mobile phone things, so that if we knew where the hump was and people would ring, but it was like that sort of size. It was huge.
Right, I think you're just, for the purposes of the record, you're indicating a box, maybe 1 foot by 1 foot or bigger than
Yeah,
that.
it's kind of like a big shoebox. But yeah, so it was like this huge thing that only could sit sort of in like the middle of the car, and it was for sabbing, and that was the only thing. So, and it had nothing to do with my dad either. So yeah, it's just an inaccuracy. I just wanted to point out I don't know where this radio telephone was. Maybe that's what he meant by mobile telephone, but it had nothing to do with my dad.
Sure. Did you ever use that during this period when you knew HN2?
I may have done, because as I say, it was a sabbing. It was primarily a sabbing thing. So, you know, if I knew if other groups were coming and like I knew where the hunt was or something when I was driving, then I'd be able to give them, you know, map references as to where they were.
So it's possible he knew you had a device of that nature?
Yes, yeah. But I mean, I don't know where he got the other, like, and it was never, I don't think it was never in the house. It was never in the house in the East London address. It was never there.
All right, thank you. I think we can take that down now. I want to ask you about your memories of how you first met HN2. It seems to follow from the evidence you've given this morning that in fact you must have met him before you moved out of your parents' address. Can you remember anything about the circumstances in which you first met him?
No, not really. It's, you know, I went to lots of meetings, lots of pickets, lots of demos. They all kind of bleed a bit into one, and there was no one specific thing that happened that I would say, oh, you know, that I could place it in. It's just I would see him, you know, I guess would see him around, would nod to him, you know. So I don't know. I don't know whether it would have been sabbing or a picket or something like that. You know, my recollection was that I knew him from London Boots Action Group, but given the date of that sort of photo and that, I may well have known him from sabbing, you know, as well. I just don't know. Sorry.
Not at all. When you first knew him, was he just a face in the crowd, or did you get to know him any better than that?
No, he was just a face in the crowd.
You describe in your witness statement a time when you were living at the East London address, and he used to come around to the address.
Yes.
And you suggest that that's the first time you really started to notice him. Is that right?
Yes.
Could you describe, from your point of view, the circumstances in which he started to come around to the address?
Yeah, it would, you know, I mean, our house, it was sort of, you know, people coming and going, and, you know, it was quite, we were always like sociable and friendly, and he started coming round, but it was always later. It was sort of later on in the evening, which was, you know, it was a bit sort of inconvenient, and because it was long, he stayed for quite a long time. He couldn't, you know, you're not rude and you don't sort of go, well, you know, it's can you go? So it would be quite awkward. And I know that I had this conversation with at least a couple of the others, and saying, you know, because we were sort of like, oh, you know, he's here again, and them sort of saying, you know, well, you're the one that invited him, and I didn't invite him. I thought you did. I was like, no, did they? No. And then we sort of realised that nobody had. He just sort of invited himself.
He says in his witness statement that he was coming around after London Boots Action Group meetings, giving people a lift back. Does that ring a bell with you?
I think he probably would have done as well, but he would also come round he would just come round, you know, without sort of, I mean, I don't think we had a phone, but he would just turn up, because sometimes, you know, it was, I mean, it feels quite mean, but we would be sort of like, oh, you know, he's here again. But yeah, he would just show up.
And was that unusual? Was he unusual, or were there other people amongst your circle, perhaps of animal rights activists, who might just turn up?
I think it was unusual because of the time that he would come, because it was a bit late in the evening. So there's always sort of like there's a sociable time, and then there's like a cut-off, and he would come after the cut-off.
And did he usually come alone on
Yes.
these occasions?
Yes.
And what would you do when he would turn up unannounced or come back after a meeting? What was happening in the house?
Not much, really. You know, it was just sort of, it's like evening in anyone else's house. You know, we would sit and like watch telly or sit and, you know, chat. So there was nothing sort of particularly interesting happening.
And when you say sit and watch television, Would that be in the living room as we've discussed it, or in your friend's room?
No, my friend's room.
Do you remember any times when he visited and it was just the two of you alone before you began a relationship?
No, I think there was generally somebody in, but like the other two people that weren't animal rights people and that, they were quite often just in their rooms. We never really saw the guy that lived in the back room sort of at all.
I think what you say in your witness statement is that you and your friend who had the TV room,
Yeah.
seemed to end up getting stuck with him
Yes.
more often than not.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah. And actually, I noticed something he said about in one of the other people I don't think they're on there, but lived in the house. It wasn't very nice, but it was about sort of like would fall out with other people and stuff. So I didn't, whether he and her had fallen out or something, but he didn't seem to be sort of with her very much. It was always kind of me and my friend that seemed to sort of bear the brunt. And also because we're mostly like in her room, so that was sort of where we'd always end up.
Just thinking about your lifestyle at that time, we know you'd moved from your parents' house to this address, that you were unemployed at the time, so money was pretty tight. Did you tend to go out to socialise or stay at home?
No, we would stay at home. I don't even remember us. I mean, I think occasionally we used to go to like the pubs afterwards, but sort of like a lemonade or something, you know. I mean, neither of us really drunk. So, you know, but we didn't go out. We would go like after a picket and that would be it.
So if somebody turned up unannounced at the house with some regularity, the chances of finding you and your friend at home were quite high.
Yes, very.
Now, in your witness statement, you describe HN2 coming over for several weeks, 2 or 3 times a week, before anything happened between the two of you. Is that about right in terms of the time scales of how things happened?
I think so, because it got to the point where it was sort of, you know, I don't think we ever didn't let him in, but it was that sort of the collective, you know, the sort of the sigh and, you know, here we go again, you know. But it was as much to do with the fact that like he stayed late, so it meant we had to stay up late, and, you know, didn't always really want to.
Now, I'm coming on to the start of your evidence about a relationship forming with him. Before any of that happened, did you have any idea from his behaviour of any interest in you as a girlfriend or anything similar?
None whatsoever. I think, to be honest, but I wouldn't have noticed. I think that was so not on my radar that I wouldn't have noticed anyway. It was the last thing that I'd ever be thinking, that anyone would be thinking.
And so I'll come on to your evidence. You describe a time when he kissed you.
Yes.
As far as you were concerned, then did that come completely out of the blue?
Absolutely.
You describe in your witness statement that the way you got together, I think is the phrase, was very awkward.
Yes.
I think it happened at the East London address, is that right?
Yes.
And he was there at the address, and you describe being in your friend's bedroom watching television.
Yes.
Can I ask you, can you remember how it was that he came to be at the address on that occasion?
The same as always, I think, just would come round.
And was it late in the evening as on other occasions?
Yes.
Was your friend, whose room you were in, was she in the house that night?
I don't think so, no.
Was she in the room when this occurred?
No.
Can you describe what happened?
Yeah, we were sat, the way the room was laid out was, say if I'm sat like on where the bed was, he was sat here, the TV, the window was there, the door was here, and the TV was sort of over there. So it was more to my side. So I was looking that way, and then I'd either gone to turn to him, or he had said something which made me turn to him, and then he just like plunged straight at me and kissed me.
What was your feeling when that happened?
Shock. Because, as you say, it was the last thing I was expecting, and just I didn't know how to react, which, yeah, it sounds stupid, but I didn't, nothing like this had happened to me before, so I didn't really know what to do. I think my overriding feeling was that I wouldn't want to hurt his feelings. So rather, what I wanted to do was just like, get off. But it's kind of, I was aware that would be a horrible thing to do. So, I didn't want to hurt his feelings. I think, I didn't really know what to do. I just remember sort of the kind of feeling of, oh my God, just sort of keep sort of, it was like I kind of just froze, but I didn't know how to react. It's horrible because to keep going back over it, and no, I didn't do what I wanted to do, and this is the result because of what I didn't do at the time. But yeah, it was so awkward. I thought, had he said at any point that he liked me, or has he said something, actually said something that I would have been able to have said, look, I don't think about you like that. But it was the shock and just the unexpectedness of it. I didn't react how I wish I had done now.
And how did you react, in fact?
I guess I just let him kiss me.
Did you say anything to him, or did he say anything to you once you'd kissed?
I don't remember after that. I don't remember talking about it because I still feel that had I had that sort of opportunity, that I might have been able to kind of to have explained things without like hurting his feelings, but I didn't. And in my head, I skip. It just feels like from then on, it's like we just seem to be like in a relationship. I don't have anything between, what happened sort of after that much. I don't remember us ever like having that conversation, because I think even that would have been awkward.
Sorry, did you want to say
No, sorry.
No, don't apologise. Before this occasion, when he kissed you, had you been alone with him? Or was this the first time that you were alone with him?
No, there would have normally been, my friend would normally have been there. She didn't often go to her home. But no, I think there was normally, she and I were quite often we were joined at the hip for quite a while. But no, I don't remember being alone with him before, and I don't have the I don't remember getting like a funny vibe off him if we've been alone before or anything. This came absolutely out of nowhere, as far as I was concerned.
You will have seen the witness statement of Andrew Coles. He suggests, I'll paraphrase, that you had flirtatious conversations with him and suggested that you were interested in having sex with him, did you do those things
No,
at any stage?
no.
I think in your witness statement you say you don't remember if the first time that you did have sex with him was that night, the night of the kiss, or later. Does that remain your best recollection?
Yes, yeah, I think the sort of, basically, I have quite a lot of issues, you know, I don't trust people, I'm not like, I wouldn't do like one night stand sort of thing. That's not anything that I would do, is to have slept with him that night. It's like, that's not me, but I don't have a memory, I don't know. But the sort of person, you know, who I am and who I was, I don't think that we would have done. But I can't say. I know, I'm fairly sure he stayed over, but I really can't say.
When you say you're fairly sure he stayed over, where did he stay?
It would be in my room.
In your single bed with the mattress?
Yes.
If you can't remember when that happened, when you first had sex with him, do
No.
you remember how it came about?
I mean, we would have been in bed, and it would have been him that initiated it,
And what makes you say that?
because it would not have been me. I was so kind of awkward, and it wouldn't have been me, you know. I'm not comfortable, you know, I never was, and it would not have been me.
Did you, you've described sort of, as it were, a relationship commencing
Yes.
pretty soon after the kiss. Am I understanding in your mind?
Yes, yeah.
What was it that from your point of view left you thinking we're in a relationship now?
I think because he used to come over all the time, and we'd be then together, and then he'd stay over.
And were you regularly having sex?
Yes.
And when he stayed over, would he stay in your bed always?
Yes.
Or did he ever sleep anywhere else in the
No,
house?
always in my bed.
Did you ever go and stay at his place during the period when you were living at your East London address?
No, I don't think I ever went. Well, no, I didn't ever go to his place. I don't know where he lived at the time. I never went there.
How intimate, and I don't mean physically, how intimate was the relationship between you and HN2?
Not particularly. I honestly, I can't remember very much about him. I think I was a pretty awful girlfriend. I don't ever remember being particularly inquisitive about him or asked very much. It was not love's young dream. That's for sure. But it felt like we were kind of like old and been married for 40 years. You know, it wasn't what I expected. Wasn't how I expected it to be. But I don't think, obviously we talked to each other, but I don't remember much about, him saying anything about his family or anything like that. And I certainly don't remember him saying that he was adopted, and I would have remembered had he told me that.
I think that's information you've learned later.
Yes.
Through others, is that
Yes.
right? You say in your witness statement that you don't recall having conversations with your friends about being in a relationship with HN2.
No.
This was, as I understand your evidence, in effect your first boyfriend-girlfriend relationship.
Yes.
Can you explain why you didn't speak about it with other people?
I think I was embarrassed.
What were you embarrassed about?
I guess him. Yeah, I think because he was sort of like fairly unpopular and quite kind of awkward and a bit odd and stuff. It's, you know, didn't feel like anything that I felt like I needed to, like, you know, broadcast.
Were you in the habit of talking to your friends about sexual encounters or
No.
intimate moments?
No.
How much affection did you show him, or did he show you, when you were with other people?
I don't remember us doing... I don't remember us being particularly, like, affectionate, and certainly not like kind of other couples were. It didn't feel the same. You know, I know that other people say that remember us being, you know, like, affectionate. That's, you know, I think because sort of in my head, you know, remembering the entire relationship and just how it was sort of, it was fairly, like, emotionless, passionless and stuff. And so I think, like, that's just how I remember it. So I don't have any recollection of us, you know, sort of like holding hands or anything like that. It just wasn't us.
Can I ask you this? You've described an unexpected moment in which he leant in and kissed you. And you've described your internal reaction, your feelings, as being that it wasn't something you necessarily really wanted.
Yeah.
And yet you end up in a sexual, intimate relationship of a kind with him. Can I ask you to just explain a little how that developed, how you think you ended up in a relationship with someone with whom your first encounter was as you've described?
Yeah. It just sounds like so pathetic to sort of say, but it was less awkward to kind of go along with it than it would have been to do anything else. It just seemed, yeah, it was less awkward to go along with it. You know, I was so uncomfortable, and it would have been uncomfortable to have said, you know, to have had that conversation with him, and, you know, and I've always said, you know, he wasn't horrible. He wasn't horrible to me, you know, as obviously not as HN2, but, you know, as a pretend boyfriend. That, you know, he wasn't nasty. He wasn't horrible. It just was. It seemed the easiest thing to do, because I wasn't prepared. I wasn't able to have that conversation to get myself out of that situation. So I just went along with it.
Looking at that now, 30-something years later, is that a reaction that you could see yourself having now, or is it a reaction that reflects 19-year-old Jessica?
I'd like to say I will be different now, but I still feel that, you know, even going back and thinking about this whole thing now, it's still got that really, the awkward, you know, I still get that awful, awkward feeling. I'd like to say now that I'd have slapped him, you know, but I don't know, but it was so awkward. You know, and I look back and, yeah, I wish that I'd have wished it had been different. I wish I'd have done something different.
once the relationship with him had begun, did you understand it to be a monogamous one?
Yes.
And how did you come to that understanding?
Because you wouldn't be in a relationship if it wasn't. In my head, it's like you're with one person, you're with that one person, and that's what relationships are.
Did you ever have that conversation with him, or was that your own assumption?
That was my own assumption, and I would have just assumed that it was his as well.
Was there any moment between you and HN2 which could be described as you trying to kiss or have physical contact with him and him trying to divert it?
No.
You will have seen HN2's witness statement, in which it's paragraph 290 for those who want a reference, in which he says he did stay over at your East London address, one time on the sofa, first of all, and then you offered that he could sleep in a mattress in your room. Did that ever happen?
No.
And his evidence in his witness statement is that he stayed on a mattress in your room 3 or 4 times. Did he stay more than 3 or 4 times in your bed?
Yes.
I put to you in a general sense before some of his evidence that suggests that you were offering to have sex with him. I just want to ask you about one specific thing he says. He suggests that you once said to him, "You can fuck me if you like."
He's a liar. He's an absolute liar.
I think in your witness statement you say that you would never have used that language. Is that your evidence?
Yeah. No, I don't speak, I don't talk like that. And I just don't know. I'm far too, again, it's awkward, but it's crass. And, as much as I swear, and, I freely admit to that, but that's, sexually like that. It's crass and no. I realise that I wrote in my statement, I've said or in a letter to somebody when I was angry, I wrote something like that, but it's not how I speak. It's not what I would have said at all. He's a liar. And I wasn't obsessed with him, and I didn't throw myself at him, and I didn't chase him, and that is lies.
Can I ask you a little bit about the involvement you had, just change the subject slightly, the involvement you had with him in relation to animal rights activities before I come back to the continuation of the relationship?
Yeah.
And an event that we have mentioned a number of times, that's the great Hooky Farm, chicken farm raid. And you've mentioned a number of times that it was HN2 who, I think in your statement you say, organised the raid. Can you explain how he went about organising it? What it is that causes you to say he organised it?
He was the driver. It was his vehicle, and also I believe there was a lot of other people before the ones of us that actually went. I think he'd called another meeting with far too many people in it, which for some reason I wasn't at that meeting, but it was, I know that it was, that other people have said that he called this big meeting, and because there were so many people there, I think quite a lot of people thought it was a bit silly and dropped out or something, but I know that he'd sort of organised that. But also I was in a relationship with him at the time. That's how I came to go. and another person from the house that I lived in.
All right, I'm just going to explore that with you a little bit more if I can.
Yeah.
So this is around June 1992, so you're confident that by that time you were in a relationship
Yes.
with him. The other person from your house, was that your friend from the TV room?
Yes.
And she was involved in this raid as well?
Yes.
How did you hear about the meeting that you've mentioned that he's said to have organised? Was that through other people?
It was, that was from other people that were there.
And what you heard was that he had called that meeting, is that, have I
Yes.
understood that correctly?
Yeah.
But you weren't at it and
No.
you weren't called to it?
Nope. Not that I remember, no.
And you said you heard that there were far too many people at it.
Yes.
Relative to what would there be too many people? Can you explain?
I think there was that many people that it was, I don't know whether like they would have been like spotted or there was just too many people to make it like security wise or something. I'm not sure, but a lot of people just saw loads of other people and were just like, no, there's, I think it was maybe like people like that carried out things with smaller groups of people that they knew, not like a big group of people, some of who you don't know.
So that was the sense that you got?
Yes.
That people thought too many were in the know?
Yes, yeah.
How did you come to be involved?
I don't remember exactly, but I mean he would have asked us because we sort of gone from our house with him and like he bought us, he dropped other people off. So, but he organised it. That's what I know because I travelled the whole way with him. I came back in the back of the van. I was in the back of the van with the chickens. He was the only person that that was telling me what to do, where to go.
You'd obviously heard about that meeting, which must have happened prior to the raid, from
Yes.
other people.
Yes.
So does it follow that you knew other people who were involved as well, other than just your housemate and friend?
Yes.
And how confident are you that you didn't hear about it from them and get involved that way?
Because they were like a bit like me, just a small like part. You're just, if you've got the vehicle, or you're the driver, then it's, you're sort of, you have like the organisation, it's down to you. Like I couldn't have organised something and then and not had like a vehicle. It all seemed to be, there was like there was a plan before I'd even got involved. So where and what to do and stuff. So I just came in. I don't know whether some of these people have dropped out, but I came in. It was already sort of the arrangements were already in place.
And from where or from whom did you learn about those arrangements?
From him.
How confident are you that you learnt them from?
Very confident. Because I didn't. Some of the people I did know, but the people that I did know that were on this thing were just, in the same sort of position as me. It was sort of like, we were kind of told, like, right, you go, you do this, you do this. We were the followers. That was the thing. We were directed. Like, we were not directing people.
And obviously you can say that on behalf of yourself. How do you feel able to say that there were others in that situation as well? What's that based on?
On us being told, like, there was other people. So, like, my friend, it's like, right, you're doing this. So you go, you do this. You hand them off to this person, and it wasn't. At that point, like we didn't. I think it was quite security conscious until like the need to know you found out in the last sort of thing. But it was him that seemed to be, that knew the plans and was telling other people the plans.
So what you're describing is being given instructions by someone else about
Yes.
what role to play.
Yes.
And who was giving you those instructions? Was anybody else giving you those sorts of instructions?
No, it was No, I mean, the person, like, so I was a person going and getting the chickens, and then, like, so the person behind me is, would be like, right, I'll be here, but we were sorting out amongst ourselves what we were going to do, but by the task that we've been given.
And the person who gave you the task was HN2?
Yes.
You describe in your witness statement that there was a second van involved.
Yeah, there was another vehicle, but I don't know, that was separate.
So did you know that was going to be there in advance?
I think so, yes.
Did you know who was driving it
I think so, yes.
in advance?
Yes.
And did you know who would be in the van?
No.
Or in the vehicle, I
No.
should say. The plan, as you describe it in your witness statement, was to go to the chicken sheds on the farm, put chickens into the bag and pass them along a human chain.
Yes, yeah.
Is that the nature of the instruction that you were given, or was that something that you decided upon amongst those?
No, that was the instruction. Like we were in sort of like a line going, across the fields, because it was quite a lot across the country. Got there, and then we all knew what we were doing when we got there.
You also describe in your witness statement trying this once and having to call it off.
Yes.
Can you tell us what happened on that occasion?
Yes. We were going over fields, and sort of we were sticking to the hedge, sort of down at the bottom of the field, and as we were going, you could see things moving on the horizon, and initially sort of thought they were cows, but then as they sort of were moving and coming forward, they were sort of square shaped, and then we just waited there, and it was the army on manoeuvres, so they were there with the big backpacks, and I mean we just laid down in a ditch and they went past and that, but it was that was called off at that point.
And it was night time, was it?
Yes.
So it was dark. Was HN2 present on that aborted
Yes.
attempt? And have you any recollection now of how far in advance the successful raid, if I put it that way, was? How far in advance this was before?
I'm going to guess it would have been a couple of weeks maybe, but that's a guess.
When the raid took place, you travelled, according to your witness statement, in HN2's van
Yes.
to the location with a number of other people, is that right?
Yes.
And you described that people had face coverings of various
Yes.
types. So it was clear to you that this was an action that the aim of which, or one of the aims of which, was not to be discovered, not to be caught.
Yes, yeah.
Had you participated in anything like that before?
No.
How did you feel participating in it on that occasion?
I was scared to death.
Scared of what?
It's scary. Everything about it is scary. The getting caught, just the doing it, everything. It was, I'm quite an anxious person, and I was really anxious about everything.
Did HN2 seem anxious or concerned?
No.
Despite being anxious or concerned, you were a willing participant, weren't you?
Yes,
Right?
I was.
You say that in your witness
Yes.
statement. And in the event, when the raid was successful, you went inside and you were, I think you described grabbing chickens.
Yes.
We've got a photograph I want to show you. It's we've got different versions of it, but this one is as it appeared in a publication called the Southeast Liberator, which appears to have been submitted by HN2 in November of 1992 to the SDS. It's MPS 0742260. I might have an error in my reference there. Yes, 0742260. Yes, there should be a page 14, if I've got the right reference. B17, sir. It's in your bundle. and it's Andrew Coles' evidence that he took this photograph during that raid and that you are the person on the right.
No, I'm the person on the left.
But this is that incident at the
Yes,
raid.
yeah, it is. Yeah, and I know that the person on the left, because I'd be the only person stupid enough to wear their favourite jeans that colour in the night, and also those, I had 2 pairs of those like basketball boots. One pair was purple and one pair was red, and they were off Kay's catalogue, and I would be the only person that stupid to have worn those, so that I know that is me. And also that we couldn't afford like balaclavas. They were like £5, I think, at the time. So my friend got a pair of socks and cut them, stitched them together and cut the eye holes in. So I was wearing a pair of socks on my head as well. So I know that that is me.
And that is you, I think, potentially with a chicken
Yes,
in your arms?
yeah.
And so you were quite literally grabbing the chickens with your arms to get them out of there. Do you remember HN2 taking photographs?
No,
Were you aware in advance that he would do that?
I don't think so, no.
Did you become aware afterwards that he had done so?
Yes,
Through seeing this?
yes.
Did you see it in a publication like this? Or
Yes.
did you see not simply a standalone photograph?
No,
published
I've
in-
never seen the photograph. No, I saw it in, what did you say, South East Liberator
This
or
is the
something?
South East Liberator, I think, yes. What do you remember HN2 doing, other than driving you there and back? What do you remember him doing during this raid?
I think he was in like the chain. I can't be certain, but there was 2 of us going in, grabbing the chickens, turning around, putting them into, like, we also had, I think, like poultry crates as well, but putting them into the crates or the bags, and then going and grabbing more chickens, and then they were being passed back until we'd got enough so that everyone had like enough, had like 2 sacks or whatever to carry, until like, we couldn't carry anymore, and then we went back to the van.
He describes in his witness statement having entered, taken photos, and otherwise essentially simply played the role of the driver.
Yeah, no, everyone, it wasn't, like, you don't need the driver to do nothing when you're there. Everyone mucked in, because the more people that helped, the more chickens you could save.
Did you ever hear from him that he had been recruited to this action by somebody else?
No,
Or that he was asked to act as a driver by somebody else?
no.
During the raid itself, did you become aware of any other person giving instructions or directing what was going on?
No.
Was he doing that during the raid?
I think we all knew what our sort of roles were.
You say in your witness statement that the raid wouldn't have happened without him.
Yeah.
Is it possible that you would have gone on a raid of this nature without him, even if not this particular raid?
I don't know how I'd have known about it. I don't know of anyone that had ever asked to do anything like this. So no, probably not, because it's only through him that I've been asked. I've never been asked to do anything like that before or after.
Can I just go back to the photograph momentarily? It's HN2's suggestion is that the person in this photograph that isn't you, so as he says you're on the right, is your roommate, your friend and roommate from the East London address who had the TV room. Is that correct?
No.
So that person is not shown in this photograph?
No, I don't think. I'm not sure who the person is on the right, but I don't ever remember her having a camouflage jacket, so I don't think it is. And I really think that I think I'm the only person that will be wearing those jeans, to be honest. I think everyone else was, I've got the memo.
All right. Once you'd taken the chickens, this is a sort of chicken shed, is it, on the farm?
Yes, yeah. I think I think they call it a broiler shed.
So sort of battery chickens
Yeah,
close to.
it was pretty horrific. Yes,
And you say you think you got about 80 chickens.
I think that was what was in like the publication or whatever. I think so. That was what it was reported as. I seem to remember.
And the chickens that you took from there, you say were taken away and put into a van. You mean HN2's van?
Yes, yeah.
And presumably also the second van, or did they all go into his van?
No, it was just in his van.
And was that the plan in advance? Or
Yes, yeah. Is that we had like the chickens and the people that took the chickens, and I think then like the other van was staying and was like doing something. I think they were like spray painting or something. I don't know, because like this was my sort of job, so it didn't see like I don't think I saw anybody from the other van. It's really difficult to know actually, because everyone was wearing balaclavas, so we don't know who we didn't know who any of us was. We almost had to sort of speak and just to find out who we were.
But you had understood in advance that you
Yes.
would leave these
Yes.
premises in HN2's van. Is that your evidence?
Yes, yeah, and then take the chickens on to where they went.
And so, as far as you were concerned, he was expecting to take the chickens away.
Yeah, yeah.
You describe in your witness statement that as the van was driving away, you in it and the chickens in it, it was stopped.
Yes.
Can you describe what happened?
Well, I think we'd gone past. It was all like, it was night. It was country lanes. We went past a police car, sort of like pulled up or parked in. They were parked, and then we'd gone past, and I think sort of, waiting to see what happened, and then I think he must have said like they'd come. Because I don't think we could see out of the back in the van. I think it was like all a panel thing. I don't think we could see out at all. But then, obviously heard like they're following us, and then they pulled us over.
Can I just, when you say you heard they're following us, do you mean there was chatter?
No,
we're being followed by the police?
I think he must have said, because I think it was only him in the front seat, so he would have said, like they're following us, we're being pulled over. But also you've seen the blue lights as they pulled us over.
And at this point, you're in the back of the van.
Yeah.
Is there any other humans in the back of the van?
Where all of us are like in the back. There's a few people in the back.
And about up to 80 chickens?
Yes, yeah.
What were you able to observe of the stop?
Obviously we were all a bit like panicking. So at this point we'd opened the like bags, because it was quite warm. So we'd got like, the chickens were pretty were kind of running about, and we just were trying, like the chickens are reasonably noisy, and so there was obviously a van full of chickens, and we could. I think he must have been telling us, because like we couldn't see, so we knew that he'd been pulled over. Somebody was coming up, and it was all these chickens making all this racket, and I don't know why, but it would be better if we were coughing to try and cover up the sound of the chickens. But why it would have been better to have a bunch of people in the back of the car coughing rather than like someone else. Chickens, I don't know, but couldn't hear what I could see, because I was on like the left hand side, so I could see like sort of a conversation, and I saw like the cop, they knew that there was like a handful of people and chickens. I couldn't hear the conversation, and then they let us go. And we all, I don't think anybody thought it was like suspicious and that. We just thought, oh my God, we've been so lucky.
So you'd gotten away with a clean shave?
Yeah, we thought luck was on our side. But I don't know what it was, I didn't hear what he said, so I don't know if it was pre-planned or, I don't know. I'd like to know. But anyway, yeah, they let us go.
And the chickens, I think, were driven to a sanctuary that had been agreed in advance.
Yes.
And HN2 was aware that was the destination.
Yeah.
I'm just going to ask you one final question before lunch, based on something that HN2 has said in his witness statement. Did you ever take part in anything resembling this, but where HM1, Matt Rayner, was the driver?
No.
So driving you away to an animal sanctuary?
No. No. Do you mean Leyden Street?
Well, there are parts in HN2's witness statement that refer to Leyden Street, but there's also reference in a similar part of his statement to Great Hooky Farm. But in any event, he is recalling an event, a raid, where chickens were taken away,
Yes.
and where HM1 Matt Rayner drove the chickens away from the scene.
There's a half truth in there, but yeah, it's not. Yeah, no, I mean, if you want to explain now.
Let's tell us what the half truth is. So, were you ever driven away from
No.
that sort of scene by
No.
Matt Rayner?
No.
So, what part of it is true?
I know, because we used to do like the demos at Leyden Street, and this one particular time, I think, if I remember rightly, it wasn't long after the Horse and Hound Hunt Ball, so I think I was injured. But anyway, I wasn't at this particular thing. I was at my parents' home because I know what happened. There was like some activists ran in, grabbed some chickens, and then ran away. And some of the chickens, like found their way onto the underground. Sounds a bit strange, but my friend went down to the underground with the chicken, and anyway, then phoned me, and it turned and like said, could you meet me at my local station? So I went and picked up this chicken, and then took it on for rehoming. So I did have one of the chickens, but I wasn't there.
So you knew that it had happened because
my friend phoned me, said, "Can you take a chicken?"
And did you have any knowledge, first or second hand, of HM1 Matt Rayner's involvement in that?
No, I think I heard like afterwards, as I know that he used to go to these, so I know that had happened. But I think it may have been turkeys. But I know I had heard that had happened. But like some people, I think didn't go with him or HN2, but decided that they'd rather go on the underground with the chickens to get them away.
So that's the Leyden Street incident, if I call it that.
Yes.
So HN2 was involved in that as well, to your understanding?
I think there's varying, like some people say it was HM1, and then other people say it was HN2, and when he went to get his, I mean, there were multiple, I think it's happened multiple times where chickens or turkeys were grabbed, where he'd gone to get his van, but by the time he came back, everyone had gone.
And the he there is HN2?
It's HN2, yes.
And this is information you're hearing from other people?
Yes.
You were or were not involved in any of these other raids?
No, I did demos there and handed out leaflets, but I don't ever remember going in and grabbing chickens and running. But like I say, you know, if I had done, I would say. But I didn't.
What HN2 says in his witness statement of the Leyden Street incident is that he recalls you running in and coming out carrying a chicken. Does that fairly describe what you did at Great Hooky Farm?
Yes, yeah. Except I didn't come out running, you know, I picking the chickens up, putting them in the bag. So I didn't, you know, come out like running, holding a chicken. But no, I'm fairly sure that never happened at Leyden Street.
All right, and just to be clear before we take lunch, your evidence as you just gave it was that you heard from other people that HN1 Matt Rayner had been involved in this type of incident.
Yes.
But you're not necessarily sure whether that's the Leyden Street incident or some other incident that you heard about?
No, I don't remember like any other, I don't remember like another chicken raid. This is the only one that I like knew about. And then like the odd chicken being taken from Leyden Street.
All right, so just want to make sure it's
Sorry.
understood. Not at all. I'm pushing you beyond lunchtime. What you're saying is what you think you've heard about is HM1 involved in the Leyden Street
Yes, yeah.
incident. Thank you. Thank you.
We will resume at 2:05.
Yes, thank you.
All rise.